She was a peasant girl with no army, no education, and no place in the politics of kings. And yet, she would bend the course of a war, resurrect a dying nation, and etch her name deeper into French memory than any commander before or after her. This is not the story of a warrior. It is the story of a force of nature, one that rose from the humblest fields of medieval France to stand at the very crossroads of faith, destiny, and power. This is how Joan of Arc became France's eternal hero, cut to flames, banners, and a silhouette standing unshaken in firelight. A fractured kingdom. By the early 1400s, France was dying. A century of war with England had carved it into bleeding pieces. Cities fell, loyalties fractured, and the rightful heir, the Dauphin Charles, was a king in name only, penniless, powerless, and mocked as the King of Bourges. Above it all, the English tightened their grip, pushing steadily toward the Loire. France needed more than a soldier. It needed a miracle. The voices in Domremy, wide shots of rural pastures, wind over golden fields. In a tiny village called Domremy lived a girl named Jeanne. She could neither read nor write. Her world was one of chores, prayers, and countryside quiet. At 13, she began hearing voices, strange, overwhelming, radiant. Voices she believed came from Saint Michael, Saint Catherine, and Saint Margaret. They did not whisper comfort. They delivered a mission. Go. Raise the siege of Orléans. Lead France to victory. Bring the Dauphin to Reims. Impossible. Absurd. Unthinkable. But Joan believed. And sometimes belief is the first crack in the armor of the impossible. The road to the Dauphin. Dramatic reenactment. A teenage girl approaching soldiers at a garrison. In 1429, at just 17, Joan left her village and demanded an audience with the Dauphin. Commanders laughed at her, officials tested her, priests interrogated her for weeks, but none found madness or deception. What they found was something far rarer, conviction powerful enough to move an army. So the Dauphin took a chance. He summoned her to Chinon. Joan walked into the court, filled with nobles and skeptics. The heir hid among them to test her, but she found him immediately, and history shifted. For the first time, Charles looked into the eyes of someone who believed completely that he was destined to be king. Orléans, the miracle of a maid. Music builds, siege towers, smoke, chaos. Orléans had been besieged for months. Without it, France would fall. Joan arrived in shining armor, carrying a banner instead of a sword, painted with the lilies of France and the names of Jesus and Mary. To weary soldiers, she was not a commander. She was hope made visible, and hope is contagious. She rallied troops veteran generals could not move. She spoke words that rekindled courage. She rode into battle, unafraid of arrows, fire, or death. On May 7th, she led the assault on Les Tourelles, the decisive stronghold. She was struck by an arrow. She fell. Her banner dipped, but she rose again, and the French surged behind her. Hours later, Orléans was liberated. The impossible had happened. The Maid of Orléans became a legend overnight. The king she created. Victories followed: Jargeau, Meung, Beaugency, Patay. For the first time in a generation, the French army advanced, not retreated. But Joan's mission was not just battle, it was coronation. She insisted the Dauphin must be crowned at Reims, the ancient cathedral of kings, deep inside enemy territory. Even his own generals said it was folly. Joan said it was destiny. And so they marched, and towns surrendered as she approached, as if swept by the force of prophecy. On July 17, 1429, Charles was crowned King Charles VII. And as choirs filled the cathedral, Joan of Arc knelt before him, tears in her eyes. She had taken a fractured prince and made him a king. Betrayal in Burgundy. But victories breed envy. Court advisors, threatened by her growing influence, moved quietly against her. Generals challenged her authority, Clerics whispered of heresy, and the king, her king, the man she had delivered to glory, grew hesitant, cautious, political. In 1430, Joan rode north to defend Compiègne. There she was captured by the Burgundians, allies of England. She waited for rescue. The king did nothing. Her fate was sealed. Trial of fire, dark, stone chamber, stacks of parchment, cold eyes of inquisitors. Joan's trial was not about truth. It was about eliminating a symbol. She faced 70 clerics, theologians, and judges, experts determined to break her. For months, they interrogated her. For months, she answered with astonishing clarity and courage. Barely 19, uneducated, alone. Yet she outwitted scholars trained for decades. But a verdict had been decided long before she ever spoke. The Maid of Orléans was condemned as a heretic. The fire at Rouen. On May 30th, 1431, Joan was led to the marketplace of Rouen. They tied her to a stake. They placed the executioner's torch in his hand. She asked only for a cross. A soldier made one by tying 2 sticks together. She kissed it. As the flames rose, she cried out, "Jesus, Jesus." Witnesses said her voice did not break. Witnesses said they saw no hatred in her eyes. Witnesses said the smoke parted from her face, as if refusing to obscure it. When the fire died, the English demanded her ashes be thrown into the Seine, to prevent relics, to prevent martyrdom. But they could not prevent memory. France had lost a girl and gained a saint. Legacy of the unbroken. 25 years later, the church overturned her verdict. Centuries later, she would be canonized. But Joan's true legacy lives not in titles, but in transformation. She changed the trajectory of a nation by believing in something larger than fear. She showed that faith can become strategy, that conviction can outweigh hierarchy, that courage can rewrite destiny. In a world ruled by kings and nobles, Joan of Arc proved that history sometimes belongs to those who were never meant to shape it. Final reflection. Why she endures. Why does Joan of Arc remain France's eternal hero? Because she embodies a truth that transcends time. Greatness does not require permission. It does not require birthright. It requires one thing: the courage to act when the world says you cannot. Joan did not live long, but she lived fiercely, not as a symbol of war, but as a symbol of what one soul, illuminated by purpose, can do. Her footsteps still echo through the corridors of French identity. Her flame still burns in the imagination of the world. She was a shepherd girl, a visionary, a warrior, a martyr, but above all, she was a reminder that even the smallest spark can light the fire of a nation, fade out on a glowing banner drifting in the wind. This is how Joan of Arc became France's eternal hero. If you found this story fascinating, like, share, and subscribe to Timeless Questions channel, where we explore the civilizations, ideas, and mysteries that shaped humanity.